friends. Welcome to Sky House Herbs podcast. I'm Ashley Elenbaas, a clinical herbalist, and in this space, I share my knowledge and experience with plant medicine to help you on your own journey of healing and transformation. Join me in exploring the ancient wisdom of plant spirit medicine and how it can be used to heal the body, mind, and spirit. We'll talk to experts in the field and share stories from people who've been transformed by powerful plant allies. New episodes are released each Monday, so please subscribe. And now, let's explore this mystical world of plant medicine together. Hey everyone, welcome in. We are back to our herb of the month. And for this month, I have a fabulous herb that maybe you haven't heard of before, but you should, especially if you live in North America, if you live in Europe, especially the Northern European countries. This is a plant you've probably seen in gardens. You're going to want to know its medicinal uses as well as its historical magical uses, which are many. Before we go into today's content, if you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, please just take a second, click the subscribe button, and also click notifications and click all notifications. That way you will see me in your feed when my new episodes come out. Thank you so much. Here in Minnesota, in my garden, I have the lovely Angelica, Archangelica, which we will be talking about today. This plant right here grows to be about 8 feet tall. It's huge. And in its second year, it will have these beautiful, big, umbelliferate, umbrella-looking seed pods and flowers. But here in the first year, it just has a lot of these really big Apothecary looking leaves. So if you recognize them, you might note that these leaves look very similar to celery. They look very similar to carrots, to maybe fennel, right? Like there's a lot of plants that have this similar leaf structure. Also, I want to show you that at the base of this plant, it has a little bit of red and it is a hollow stem. I'll have to cut it. Do you want me to do that? I can do that. So if I break this stem, it smells so good. You can see that it's hollow. Maybe you can see it's hollow. All right, can you see? This is a hollow stem. And again, the hollow stem is another feature of the Apothecary family. And what's really cool about this herb is that plants that have hollow stems bring information and bring spirit through. So elder has a hollow stem, and elder has been used to make flutes, to bring in the fairies and bring in spirits, to protect the garden. And while not in the same family, this plant, Archangelica, was also thought of as a protector plant and a plant that helps with people crossing over and crossing through thresholds, specifically the dream world. So let's talk about that. I'd like to start by talking about Angelica and its physical properties, and then we'll go into some of its historical and its magical uses. This herb grows very, very tall and very, very wide. So if you don't want it overtaking your garden, don't plant it in your garden. Plant it out in the woods. It really likes to have wet feet. So plant it in places where the ground is a little bit on the moisture side. It likes to grow in gullies. I have it in my bed where the water kind of, not the bottom of the hill, but where a lot of the water accumulates. So it really likes it. It's very happy there. It doesn't love full sun, but it likes partial sun, partial shade. This plant, as I mentioned in the intro, grows here in North America, especially in the Midwest, but it also grows in Norway, Sweden, and throughout Scandinavia and northern countries and climates. And one of its common names that we often hear referred to is garden angelica. Think about this plant as being kind of like the angel of the garden. It's huge, it's tall. Let me show you what its flowers look like. I'll show you a picture from Nicholas Culpepper's Color Herbal. This is a great book if you're into astrology and herbalism and you want to hear the connections between plants and their astrological rulers, as outlined by Nicholas Culpepper. Here's a picture of Angelica in all of its glory, and you can see here that umbelliferate circular flower, and it has a bunch of tiny little flower heads on it. You can also see the stem, and you can see that very signature Apiaceae family or parsley family leaf shape. This herb will flower typically in the late summer. It will produce tons of seeds. I mean, I am finding Angelica plants across the yard, down on the other side. It will reproduce and spread. So please be mindful of that when you invite Angelica into your garden, that it will really, really, really want to stay, and it will want to take over and bring more of its angelic energy into your space. As a medicine, Angelica is warming. I think that's probably the number one thing I want you to remember is this is a warming, diffusive herb. When we think about herbs that go into the body, that get blood flowing, that stir things up, that crank up metabolism and get the body really activated, this is an herb that will do just that. Therefore, if you're somebody that tends to run hot, you might find this herb to be a little bit too stimulating. But if you tend to run cold, you've got cold fingers, cold toes, a cold nose. If you have cold and sluggish digestion, if you tend towards more of a depressive or anxious depressive temperament, this herb is going to be amazing. Studies have even shown that this herb has been used to help with anxiety. So it has anxiolytic properties, and I can include a reference to that study in the links below. Because this herb is so warming and so stimulating, it is not recommended in pregnancy or in breastfeeding because, well, in pregnancy, because we don't want to encourage blood flow. It is a strong emmenagogue. So if you're looking to bring on your cycle, it can be very helpful for slow, sluggish, and scanty menstrual cycles in women. But if you have really strong cycles or really, if you're bleeding a lot or you're pregnant, you'd want to avoid this herb. In my practice, I love to use this herb for people who are cold, depressive, and who have really slow digestion. I find that this one is such a great plant for people who have cramping in their stomachs, sluggish digestion, the food just sits there and it doesn't move, and they just generally kind of just feel cold and weak. This herb is also related to Dong Quai or Chinese Angelica. Its Latin name is Angelica sinensis, and it is a cousin of Angelica Archangelica, but they're not the same. So we don't want to interchange the two. They are different medicines. But what's interesting is Angelica sinensis, the Chinese Angelica, is considered to be, they call it sort of a female ginseng because it's very tonifying for building blood, building heat, building energy, building the yang principles of the body. And our European and our Western Angelica Archangelica, was considered to be very similarly a blood builder. And Nicholas Culpeper assigns it rulership by the sun and to be used anytime there are afflictions of Saturn. So Saturn is cold, hard, and dry. And anytime there was a cold, hard, or dry condition, Culpeper thought of this warming solar herb to be the perfect antidote. To read from Nicholas Culpeper, he says, "It is an herb of the sun in Leo," so super solar. "Gather it when he is there," which means gather it under the influence of Leo. "The moon applying to his good aspect." So when the moon is applying to a good aspect of the sun in Leo, this is when we gather it. "Let it be gathered in either his hour or in the hour of Jupiter." Culpeper also says, "For all epidemical diseases caused by Saturn, it resists poison by defending and comforting the heart, blood, and spirits. It doth like against the plague." And Angelica was actually an herb that was used during the time of the plague to both protect and ward off the plague from households. It was used as a smudge to burn, to fumigate the home. It was also used in vinegars. It was used in teas. It was used in wines and as a tincture to build up immunity and resistance against the plague and other diseases, as well as being used to treat the plague by helping the body warm up and fight off these viral diseases. Historically in Europe, Angelica was revered for its antimicrobial and antiviral properties, and it was given when somebody came down with a fever or a flu. We modern herbalists still use this herb as a preventative to help boost immunity and also help to ward off infectious diseases that can be spread when the immune system is compromised. The taste of Angelica is also really interesting. We don't use the stem here in modern herbalism. We're going to use the root as a medicine, and we can use the fresh or the dried root. However, I do want to say that the fresh root does contain some fumano-coumarins, which can be irritating to the skin and cause phototoxicity or photosensitivity. And there are a lot of strong volatile oils in it, and taken in really high doses, this can cause nausea and stomach upset. However, in the right doses, it will take away nausea and take away stomach upset. Traditional herbalists use the fresh root in medicine making, and we can read that in the work of Nicholas Culpeper from the 1700s, as well as in other ancient works. Also, Hildegard de Bingen, who was a Christian mystic, in her old Physica and ancient texts, she calls this herb, I'm going to read it, Engelwurz or Heigistelwurz. But Engelwurz translates as angel medicine or angel wort. And so this plant, we know its Latin name is Angelica, Archangelica, and it was considered to be a very protective plant. And Hildegard used it for protection, not only against issues like colds and flus and things like that. She used it specifically for digestive issues where maybe there was a spiritual or a curse component to it. And she considered this herb to be a protector sent by the archangels or by the angels as a medicine. There's a lot of old medieval paintings of Angelica with its beautiful flower, its tall towering leaves as an angel protecting over either a monastery or protecting over a village. So we can think about this herb as being a plant of protection. And Hildegard also mentions that angel or Engelwurz was also used as a talisman. So it was carried, the dried root could be carried in your pocket or in an amulet as a protector and for protection against diseases, but also against negative spirits. Some other traditional remedies and ways of using it include candying the stems. I haven't done this personally, so I'm not going to recommend you do it, but they would actually slice up these stems and stick them in sugar and candy them and make Angelica candy. And I have heard of this before, but because I haven't tried it, I'm not going to recommend that you try it either. But if you've used it before, then continue to use it as you've been trained. The other piece about this plant that I want to talk about is its magical uses. And this is a really cool part. We talked about some of the magical uses from Hildegard and seeing it as a protector plant or an archangel plant. But it was also used by a lot of other traditions, including animistic and pagan traditions of Sweden and Norway, as a protector and as a plant that helps you journey into the dream realm and also into the spirit realm. In Matthew Wood's new book, A Shamanic Herbal, Plant Teachers and Animal Medicine, this one was published in 2024, he has a chapter on herbal preparations for taking internal journeys and doing spirit journeying. And here's what he says. According to the teachings of the genius abbot Hildegard von Bingen, there is one plant that increases the power of the animal within us, Angelica Archangelica, and one that increases the human, galangal or Alpina galangal. The former is a native of Europe, the latter a trade item from the Spice Islands. A smudge of Angelica root opens up the imagination like no other vegetal teacher. Galangal strengthens the heart. So we can use the cousins or analogs on this plant, bear root or Lomatium dissectum and osha root, Linguisticum porteri. They are members of the Apiaceae or carrot family as well. All have brown, furry, oily roots that look like the paw of a bear. So they are all bear medicines and are all closely related, botanically and medicinally. Many members of the carrot family are abortifications. Some are moderately toxic, including the native North American Angelica atropurpurea, and a few are deadly, like Conica maculatum and the cicutas, or basically poison hemlock. Ethnobotanist Kat Harrison says that in every indigenous culture she has ever visited, in every part of the world where Angelica or an analog grows, she has found that people wear it as a mojo. It is not only protective against germs and bad vibes, but it was spiritually reinforcing and uplifting. It was used in Europe for pestilence or contagious disease and has strong, sweet, spicy scent that also makes it a wonderful incense or smudge. He talks about the other types of bear medicine, lomatium and osha, but he says here, and I agree with him, because it is easy to grow in the garden, Angelica archangelica ought to be the preferred medicine unless we need one of the others for a specific reason. And then he makes this note about working with them as a plant journeying agent. He says, the interesting thing about these three plants is that they are suited to journeying in the three worlds. The upper worlds, Angelica, the middle worlds, lomatium, and the lower worlds, linguisticum. I remember several years ago when I was studying with Matthew Wood in Virginia, we were at a friend's herb school and we took the root of Angelica in a shell and burned it in the space that we were studying in. And he said, I've heard that this herb is really good for opening up the space for doing imaginative and journey work. So he said, let's try it. And we were all like, yeah, let's try it. So we burned it. And oh my gosh, the scent was like maple syrup and honey and celery. It was so warm and really, really opening up for the lungs and for the mind. And as we all sat there and breathed in the Angelica root smoke, I could definitely feel my consciousness shifting and feeling sort of a sense of an opening, a broadening of my perception to what was above me. After we sat in the smoke for a little bit, we took our lunch break and we all walked around the woods. And I have to say, I noticed a qualitative difference in my perception. I have since used it when I do my artwork or painting to just open up a creative space for me to bring in images that I would like to paint and put on the canvas. So what about taking this as a medicine? How can you engage with it? Well, in addition to burning the dried root as an incense, you can take it as a tincture. And I've used it both as a dried root and a fresh root tincture. They both taste a little different. One thing to note is if you're going to use the fresh root, that you need to use a really high alcohol containing extractant. Because the root is very thick and watery, you don't want it to spoil. So you want to use a high proof alcohol, maybe like an Everclear or something that is maybe 80% or higher. For the dried root, you don't need that. You can use something like brandy, works really nice. I think the brandy taste profile works really nicely with Angelica root. Something you can do in the middle, if you grow your own Angelica archangelica and you want to make a tincture, you can also partly dry it. You can slice it and let it just sit out for a day or two in a very dry area where there's airflow. Let some of that initial moisture evaporate off. You could even stick it in a dehydrator on very, very low, like 100 degrees for a few hours to let that initial moisture evaporate, and then you can add that into something like brandy, so you don't need to have a super high proof alcohol, which sometimes can be a little bit more expensive. Like with any tincture you make, you want it to sit for at least 4 weeks or so, or a full lunar cycle, and then you can strain it and take it. Now, as a tincture, I'm going to recommend with this herb, because it's quite strong and aromatic, you start with a lower dose. Maybe you start with 5 drops on your tongue twice a day, and then you can slowly increase to about 10 drops twice a day. If you're just using it for a periodic boost and energetic warming and protection, then 3 drops is perfectly fine. But if you're noticing that your hands are cold, your feet are cold, your immune system is a little bit lower, you have gas and bloating digestively, then you do want to start with a bit of a higher dose. This is a great one to take before meals to get your digestive juices flowing and to heat up your digestive fire so you can more easily break down the foods you're eating. This is an herb you can also take as a flower essence. So if you are pregnant or breastfeeding, do not take this as a tincture. Use a flower essence. And this doesn't contain any of those volatile oils that we find in the root. It is just the flower energetic imprint infused into spring water. When using it as a flower essence, you'd need 3 drops on your tongue, maybe 2 or 3 times a day, and that's enough. And the last way you can use it is you can just stick it in your pocket. Take some of the dried root and stick it in your pocket as a protective talisman to create a protective shield around you, really calling in this beautiful archangel protection all around you like a beautiful umbrella. And it kind of does. It's so pretty. I just love it. And it smells, it just smells so good. And also this hollow tube that we mentioned as a conduit, as a way of spirit being able to move through. So my friends, that is Angelica, Archangelica. I hope you enjoyed this, you learned something, and if you've never tried this herb before, give it a try. And if you haven't grown it before, find a wet, cool place in your garden and let it grow. It is a beautiful ally to have nearby and to also have in your medicine cabinet. If you've ever used this herb before, let me know what you think. How do you use it? What do you notice when you take it? Oh, and I have one other thing I didn't mention. This is, I think, kind of important. How I use it with my family. I love using Angelica with my kids if they're having difficulty falling asleep. If children are having nightmares, if they're having stress in their stomach that's causing them to have a hard time falling asleep or relaxing their mind, I find that Angelica, Archangelica, it's kind of like a mother bear. I think of it kind of like a big mother bear coming around my little cubs and giving them a big boost of warm confidence so that they can feel warm and safe and secure and have that angelic protection around them while they're making that kind of difficult transition into their dream worlds or into their sleep. I also sometimes take it along with them. If I notice they're having difficulty falling asleep, I'll just take a few drops myself, and then we'll all go to sleep with that bare angelic medicine inside of us. Okay, that's all for today. Thank you again, and I look forward to seeing you all in the next episode. If you liked this video, click the like button. That just lets me know that you enjoyed it. Okay, everyone. Bye.